You are in a conversation. The other person is talking. And somewhere around their third sentence, you already know. You know exactly what they're about to say. The emotion they're hiding, the version of this conversation they will remember. And you know with complete certainty that they cannot see any of what you are seeing. So you nod, you smile, you respond to what they said, not to what was actually happening. Because explaining what you actually perceive would take longer than the conversation allows. And most people don't want to know what you notice. There is a specific kind of mind that has been doing this automatically, involuntarily, exhaustingly for its entire life. Picking up what isn't said, feeling the weight of rooms, knowing the ending before it arrives. If that description just landed in your body rather than your head, psychology has something important to say to you. What you've been calling oversensitivity or overthinking is not a flaw in your wiring. It is a specific neurological architecture that processes reality at a higher resolution than most people around you are running. 7 signs. 7 specific experiences that hyper-aware people carry and spend years not having a name for. Stay until sign 7. That one explains the specific loneliness where it actually comes from. Hyper-awareness is not just sensitivity. It is a different filter threshold. Most brains filter out 95% of incoming sensory and social data. A hyper-aware brain filters out significantly less. More data means richer perception. It also means a heavier processing load, a higher signal count, and an experience of reality that is simultaneously more complete and more costly. This isn't about being more intelligent. It isn't about being more spiritual. It is neurological, something in the architecture of your nervous system that was set long before you had a word for it. 7 signs. Let's name them. Sign 1. You cannot unsee a pattern once you've seen it. You see a friend deflect every question about their job 3 conversations in a row. You cannot unnotice that. You see the structural flaw in the project. You cannot unsee it, even when everyone else has moved on. This is called high perceptual vigilance. Research shows it produces a measurably different experience of the world. You cannot choose to see less. You can only choose what you do with what you see. Sign 2. You know when someone is lying before they finish their sentence. Not always consciously, more like a shift in atmospheric pressure. Something in the timing of their words. A fraction of a second misalignment between what their face is doing and what their voice is expressing. Dr. Paul Ekman's research on microexpressions found a small percentage of the population detects them automatically, below conscious processing, and experiences the result as intuition. You've always called it a feeling, a sense, something that told you. What it actually is, your perceptual system processing social data at a granularity most nervous systems filter out. The cost. You live in a world where most people are not telling you the full truth, and you always know. Not what the truth is, just that it isn't what you're hearing. Sign 3. You walk into a room and you know something is wrong before anyone speaks. 2 people at a table whose eye contact is slightly off. A laugh that came half a beat too early. The particular quality of silence that follows something said before you arrived. Research on social perception accuracy shows individuals who score higher on this measure also show higher empathic accuracy, not just sensing something is wrong, but identifying what and why. This sounds like a superpower until you consider the cost. You are reading a complex feed of information in every social space you enter, automatically, without an off switch. You don't choose to read the room. The room reads itself into you. Sign 4. The invisible workload. Every social interaction, you are simultaneously tracking what is being said, what is not being said, how they feel about what they're saying, how they want you to respond, and whether that response would be honest. Most people in that same conversation are doing approximately one of those things. You are doing all 5. And then you go home and you're exhausted, and someone asks why, and you don't have an answer, because the workload was invisible, even to you. Research on cognitive load in high empathy individuals. The exhaustion is not correlated with how many interactions they had. It is correlated with the depth of processing performed during each one. If sign 4 landed, stay until sign 7. That one explains the specific loneliness that people who see too much carry their entire lives without ever naming it. Sign 5. You saw it coming. You always do. Not the big, obvious things. The relationship that is going to end before either person knows it. The project that will fail at a specific point for a specific reason. And you couldn't say anything because there was no evidence yet. So you watched. You held the knowledge. You hoped you were wrong. Researchers call this prospective social modeling, projecting current data points into future outcomes with higher than average accuracy. Being right before the evidence arrives is the most isolating position a human mind can occupy. Sign 6. You grieve things before they're gone. A relationship that's still alive, but you can already sense pulling toward an ending. A phase of your life that's still happening, but that you can feel beginning to close. Most people grieve in the past tense, after the loss. You grieve in the present tense, before. Psychologists call this anticipatory affect processing, and research finds it is most common in individuals with high emotional processing depth. The cost: you experience a loss twice, once before, once after. And the people around you only experience it once, and often can't understand why you seem already processed. Sign 7. There is a loneliness specific to people who see too much. It is not the loneliness of being alone. You can be in a room full of people who care about you and still feel it completely. It is the loneliness of running a different resolution of reality than the people around you. Even in your closest relationships, there is a version of your experience that is genuinely private, not because you're withholding, because it exists at a frequency others aren't tuned to receive. Psychologists call this epistemic loneliness, the specific experience of feeling cognitively alone, even in connected relationships. It is not a failure of relationship. It is not a failure of communication. It is the natural consequence of a mind running a higher resolution of reality than the environment was designed to support. If you recognized yourself in 5 or more of those 7 signs, I want to say something that most people in your life have probably never said to you directly. You're not too sensitive, you're not broken, and you're not making things harder than they need to be. You are a specific kind of nervous system, one that processes reality at a higher resolution than most environments were designed to accommodate. That is not a burden you chose. It is an architecture you were built with. Nobody told you that the reason rooms exhaust you is that you are reading them in full. Nobody said the intuition you second-guess is subconscious pattern data your brain collected while everyone else was sleeping. They gave you labels instead: too sensitive, overthinks, too intense, too much. Those labels were written by people running a lower resolution of the same world. You were not too much. You were simply more than the instruments they had to measure. And the resolution gap, the specific loneliness of running a richer frequency, that is not a wound. It is the cost of a capability that most people around you were simply never built to see. Which of those 7 landed most accurately for you? Drop the number in the comments. I read every single one. And if someone in your life has spent years being called too sensitive, too intense, too in their head, send them this, not as an explanation, as a map. Subscribe for more psychology that names what you've always felt but never had words for. Every week, we go deeper. Your mind deserves to understand itself.
If you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button below so you never miss our next one. Understand your mind, upgrade your life. See you next time.